Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Dr. Husnul. My name is Idzni Nashuha, binti Mohd Rashidy, and I will be presenting about the anatomy, the function, and operation of bioreactor. So what are bioreactor? A bioreactor is a closed system used for the processing of a biochemical reaction. It supports either the growth of cells, such as mammalian or insect, in the culture or production of a secondary metabolite, such as pharmaceutical products, antibodies, or vaccine. Initially, these vessels are called fermenters, but strictly fermentation is for anaerobic processes, whereas the majority of bioreactors are used for aerobic processes. So bioreactor can be aerobic and aerobic. So what are the types of bioreactor? On the basis of mode of operation, a bioreactor may be classified as batch, fed batch, or continuous. So example of continuous are continuous third tank reactor model. So an example of continuous bioreactor is the chemostat. So there are 6 types: continuous third tank bioreactor, bubble column bioreactor, airlift bioreactor, fluidized bed bioreactor, packed bed bioreactor, and photobioreactor. So what are the parts of bioreactor? So the anatomy of bioreactor is very important to maintain and standardize the fermentation process for small and large volume of production. So what are the points to consider in the design? So there are many points to consider in designing a bioreactor. So this is just 4 of them. So the first one is adequate aeration and agitation without a damage to the cell, low power consumption, easy and dependable temperature, and evaporation losses should be not excessive. So this is the anatomy of bioreactor. So we have the sterile, neutral medium, impeller, oxygen concentration probe, cooling jacket, cool water, stream, harvest pipe, compressed air, spazzer, temperature probe, pH probe, cool water outlet. This is the filtered water gas, pressure gauge, acid and base probe. This is the motor, antifoam, and steam. So this is the compartments inside the vessel of bioreactor. So we have the heat plate, the antifoam probe, acid base probe. This is 2.5 liter glass jar bioreactor. Air spazzer, 6 plate base impeller, stamping part, baffle, shaft, and stirrer shaft seal. So what are the head plate? The head plate is to cover the top of vessel of bioreactor. Antifoam probe is to prevent contamination in the fermentation process. Acid-base probe is a flow to acid. Acid-base probe is a flow to add acid and bases during the fermentation process. And the glass jar of bioreactor is the material of the vessel of the bioreactor. So what are spazzer? Spazzer is to ensure better dispersal of air, breaks incoming air into small bubble. So there are 3 types of spazzer. Porous, orifice, and nozzle spazzer. So there are 6 plate. This impeller is to diminish the size of the air bubble to give a bigger interfacial area for oxygen transfer and to decrease diffusion path, and to maintain uniform environment throughout the vessel content. So the 4 most common impeller types are multi-bleed disc, propeller screw of various types, intermediate impeller, and turbines for loop reactants. So the number of impeller depends on the height of the liquid of the fermenter. So the sampling part is a valve to get the sample to the fermentation. Baffle is to increase turbulence and mixing efficiency. It is also to prevent vortex formation, splashing, water will clog becomes damp, preventing free flow oxygen, and that is suitable for low volume for short-term fermenter. Shaft is not allow the medium to escape or microorganism to enter. Should not have a double mechanical seal, which ensure that the medium does not leak out of the shaft housing. And stirrer shaft seal is to hold the stirrer and heat plate. So there are different seal designed to prevent contamination like mechanical seal, rubber seal, brush seal, and also pack blend seal. So this is all the fittings on the heat plate of the bioreactor. So we have the inlet for acid and base, inlet for sampling probe, inlet for exhaust cooler, inlet for inoculum, for inlet for pH probe, inlet for oxygen probe, inlet for anti-foam, inlet for air, and inlet for temperature probe. So what are temperature probe? Temperature probe is to maintain a required temperature for microbial growth that is essential for a good yield. Oxygen probe is dissolved oxygen measure partial pressure of dissolved oxygen. pH probe is to ensure the pH level is maintained during the fermentation. Inoculum inlet is to insert the inoculum, and inlet for exhaust cooler is for curbing evaporative loss in the vessel by cooling the exhaust gas path. So here is what I visualize it in real life. So we have exhaust cooler, sampling probe, acid base probe, temperature probe. There is a heat plate on top of it. Inlet for air, anti-foam, O2 probe, pH probe, and the middle is the stir shaft to hold the shaft, and then we have the shaft. So we have the baffle, the fourth stripe is the impeller, and then we have asperger, and the glass one is the glass jar of bioreactor. So the pink one is the jacket basically. So here is my visualized of bioreactor. So we go to the operation of bioreactor. So the first one is preparation of bioreactor. To begin with the operation with the vessel setup, there were several components that need to be considered for a fermenter. This one is calibrate probe before installation and sterile with the vessel. Head plate need to install to the probe. The PO2 probe was used to measure the dissolved oxygen content inside the vessel, which is during the fermentation. Then harvest pipe required for sampling the culture. The adjustable height component was installed in the head plate. Gas pressure was received at the bottom of vessel and provided gas infusion to the culture. Hooks patched up to the gas sources on the fermenter and mounted in the heat plate. Impeller shaft and impeller were where the impeller helps stir the culture and maintain the culture uniformity in the vessel. Exhaust gas condenser was used to curbing evaporate loss in the vessel by cooling the exhaust gas path, and pH control or fat addition were lean bioreagent pump. Next is vessel and heat plate should be cleaned with soap and water. After the vessel set up, then vessel and heat plate should be cleaned with soap and water. A brush soft was recommended. And then bleach or cleaner with chlorine cannot be used to clean the vessel. Then the bacterial medium was then added to the clean vessel. The vessel heat plate is mounted and make sure that the O-ring is seated properly. The exhaust gas condenser, anti-foam probe, harvest pipe was then installed into the port, and the tubing for harvest pipe is clamped. Next, we calibrate the pH probe. So two reference buffer are gathered in small beaker, a wash bottle, and a spare wash beaker. Then a pH probe is then hooked up to the fermenter, and the fermenter is turned on. Then for vessel setup and calibration of PO2 probe, the PO2 probe tip is open and to ensure there is enough electrolyte to cover the tip. PO2 probe in the heat plate is then installed and make sure that the autoclave cap is put on to protect the electrical connection. Then a bottle for reagent feed with a deep tube and air filter are obtained. Tubing is then placed on all unused port, then tubing is clamped off. Filter on the exhaust gas condenser is installed. Then all tubes that go below the level of media are clamped off. Vessel then placed in the autoclave. Then the vessel is then installed in the fermenter base. So pH probe cables, buzzer are all hooked up on the gas addition rotameter, and the PO probe cable is then attached. So the reagent is sterilely added to the bottle with a deep tube and pump heat on the base of pump heat spindle is installed. Temperature sensor then placed in the thermal well of the head plate. Agitation arm is lowered onto the vessel in parallel coupling. Water is then checked. Air supply is on. Then temperature parameter is scrolled and temperature is set. So let's say we need to have 35 degrees Celsius. So we set a temperature first. Then the gas flow is turned to 1 vessel volume, media per minute or less. During this, the air bubbles will appear from the bottom. Then the agitation parameter is screwed and set on the temperature has reached. Once the temperature has reached, pH parameter is scrolled and it was then to set the pH. Agitation is set on the maximum speed for the run. Next, the O2 parameter is set to ensure to be polarized properly to display proper value. Then after 15 minutes, cursor will use to set the value to calibrate the PO2. Again, the agitation is scroll and set, then increase the speed of agitation. Uh, so then more oxygen will be forced into the solution as growth demand increases. Then PO2 parameter is scrolled and the value is set. Enter button is pressed to start the PO2. Control software package on the PC is started. Once the probe are calibrated, agitation temperature pH is stable, alcohol is used. Port that will be used for inoculation is sterile. The inoculum drawn into a string and added into the sterilized port, then port is closed. Then we calculate the inoculation in a notebook. And then the end of the harvest pipe tube is sterile with alcohol. Clamp is open, covering the harvest pot. Harvest pot and shrink is used to draw a sample. This first sample is discard because it has been sitting in the pipe. So another shrink is used to put another sample. With the third string, air is pushed back through the pipe to remove as much dead volume from the line and clamp the line off. Then the cell density and value of pH are recorded. Finally, the heat plate is open for the disposed content in a kill tank with a bleach or other antimicrobial agents. So what are the application of bioreactor? So a bioreactor refers to a device or system meant for grow cell or tissue in the content of cell culture. These devices are being developed for use in tissue engineering, and the bioreactor is a modular in nature and carry out all the purposes of fermentation in a single complete environment. So bioreactor plays a huge role in bioprocess technology, and the most commonly used in fermentation industry is stir tank bioreactor. So that's all for me today. Thank you so much, Doctor.